everyone, this is Callimara here, and no, it's not calamari. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new to the pond, go ahead and take a dive. You might like it here. First and foremost, I want to apologize for my voice because I am feeling a bit sick at the moment, but I have videos to put out, so here we are. And this topic probably feels like it came out of nowhere, especially when there's a bigger discourse for a different franchise meant to center around an animated talking dog. But you know what? I'm allowed to talk about good animated media for a change, and I actually have a personal tie to this show, which is what really compelled me to talk about it. See, the creator of Bluey, Joe Prom, is actually an alumnus of Griffith University, where he completed his Bachelor of Animation. Why is this important? Because Griffith is also the university I attended for my bachelor's degree. He actually won the Outstanding Alumni Award in 2021 for the national and international recognition that Bluey got, which I thought was really cool. So yeah, not to brag or anything, but I went to the same university as the creator of Bluey, even though we didn't graduate from the same degree, nor did we graduate in the same year. But it still counts, and I'm totally gonna name drop him every chance I get. And being someone who attended the same university and actually lived in Queensland for 4 years, which is the main setting for Bluey, I think I could probably provide more valuable insight on why this series is so great and point out the small details you might not have picked up on that will hopefully make you enjoy it better. So for this video, I will be drawing Bluey and Bingo Healer as human children, and of course, I will be giving my reasoning for the design choices I end up going with. Also, I don't know if you know this, but Bluey is actually a girl! If you want more mind-blowing facts like that, then be sure to watch all the way to the end. But first, I want to tell you guys about my insanely adorable and exciting collaboration with Vograce. Vograce is a professional product manufacturer and supplier that specializes in producing custom goods like keychains, stickers, notebooks, standees, pins, and more. If you're an artist looking for ways to manufacture your goods for an artist's alley or just merch in general, then Vograce is perfect for you. Now, I have worked with Vograce before, and you guys know I was super impressed with their quality, and so I was very excited to create my own wares with them. I decided to make a few cute keychains out of my Cookie Run Fanart and Hydrake pup, all with different keychain materials. For my pumpkin pie and espresso cookie fanart, I went with the custom 3D printing acrylic keychain, which gives it this really cool depth between the characters and their backgrounds, making it look 3D. For my bubble tape cookie drawing, I chose the custom colorful epoxy acrylic keychains, which follows the character's silhouette and uses colored acrylic. And finally, for my Hydrake pup, I chose the custom hot stamping keychains, which gives it this gorgeous metallic gold stamp over the illustration. All of the keychains turned out so well. The printing quality is crystal clear and the clips are absolutely adorable, and I'm extremely pleased with them. After I'd submitted my illustrations, they made sure they were translating the design correctly and making sure the order was correct before actually creating the physical products, which shows me that they care about the quality of their products and the satisfaction of their customers. They actually made 2 extra espresso cookies than what I ordered, but my sister really liked the keychains too, so I gave her one. If you guys are looking into making merch or wares to sell at conventions or just your personal store, I highly recommend Vograce. You can actually get $5 off by using the link in my description. So what are you waiting for? Make your order today. They start as low as $1 or even less. Also, if you like the look of my keychains and would like one for yourself, I am starting a Draw This in Your Style challenge where you can win these super exclusive pieces of Callimara merch. So here are the rules for my DTIYS. 1. You have to be subscribed to me and follow me on my Instagram and Twitter. 2. Draw any of the 4 Wildward Girls in your style. No tracing or AI art allowed, please. 3. Post it on Instagram or Twitter with the hashtag Wildward Girls and tag me. And that's it. I'll be picking 5 winners where the top 3 will receive the full keychain set, and the 4th and 5th places will each receive a pair of the pumpkin pie and espresso cookie keychains. Now, you might notice that leaves me with 1 espresso cookie keychain left, and I'm planning on sending that to one of my pond dwellers on Patreon. You guys have until the end of February to submit your work, so good luck! So this design was actually really good practice for me to draw little kids. Normally on my channel, I'm drawing tweens, teens, and young adults, and I don't really have to draw little kids as much. I wanted to practice because this age demographic has very different body proportions, and I don't want to just transplant the proportions of a teenager or young adult and shrink it down to child size, because that's creepy in a number of ways. I decided to draw Bluey and Bingo together because they are such a great team and they have such a realistic and wholesome sister relationship. Plus, they are slightly different ages, with Bingo being 4 years old, which means I get to practice differentiating age groups a bit more. So here's what I learned from my personal practice. Kids, especially small kids, have rounder, stubbier bodies, and while drawing Bingo, I realized the key here is shorter, chubbier limbs. It's kind of like drawing chibi, where their arms and legs are tiny compared to their bodies, but with a slightly more proportional head size. Just slightly, because fun fact, kids do have proportionally larger heads than the rest of their body. Another fun fact, which is only tangentially related, but kids also have proportionally bigger livers than adults, which is why medication clearance is a lot faster in kids. But compared to an adult, they're still smaller, so you need to be very careful with the dosages of medication you give them. That's why kids get prescribed medicine based on their body weight, and some medicines actually have special pediatric dosages. And maybe you'll never use this knowledge, but now you have it. Anyway, back to Bluey. I knew I wanted to put the girls in a fun, energetic pose, and I immediately thought of the intro of the series, where the characters do kind of introduce themselves and strike a pose. From there, I end up drawing the girls in a shouting pose, and I imagine they're shouting out their names like they do in the intro, and I was really happy with how it turned out. For their hair, I followed the shape of the markings on their original design, where they've got these two spots kind of overlapping their eyes, and to me that kind of looks like they've got fringes that are parted down the middle, which is very on trend, I must say. Their markings loop around the back of their heads just above their shoulders, which I interpreted as their hair being about shoulder length. For Bluey, I tied her hair back in a half ponytail because she's an active kid who gets into all sorts of adventures. And for Bingo, I styled her hair in a cute bob. For their clothes, I wanted to go for beachside summer vibes because it gets really hot in Australia, but mostly I wanted to put them in something they could comfortably play in. I initially started out with a baggy, oversized shirt for Bluey with leggings underneath and cute little boots to represent the color of her hind paws. I also thought it would be cute to have a jacket tied around her waist to resemble her tail, and I started to do that for Bingo as well, but as you'll soon see, I didn't end up going with that idea in the end. I just thought it looked a bit samey, and I wanted the design to be able to stand on their own regardless of the reference. I changed Bluey's shirt to a tank top and gave Bingo some shorts, but I ended up swapping the shorts for a skirt and gave the shorts to Bluey. My reasoning for this was that Bluey is more active and mischievous than her sister, so I thought the shorts suited her better, whereas Bingo is the more passive, well-behaved sister, so I gave her a cute little skirt and legging combo to make her look like a little lady. With little boots too, of course. Now, while I do line art, here's a Bluey fun fact for you. The name Bluey actually refers to more than just the fur color of the titular character. One of the reasons the name Bluey was chosen was because a Bluey is what we call puppy pads in Australia. I think it's a perfect reference to both the species that is featured in the series and the age of the character, and immediately establishes the show's target demographic. Young kids, or pups in this case. More tangentially related fun fact, Blueys are also used as incontinence aids in nursing homes and hospitals, and there's even a supersized version of a Bluey that covers the entire bed called a Kylie. And the first time I heard that, Naturally, the first thing I thought of was Kylie Jenner, and I think it's funny to imagine Kylie Jenner launching her own line of incontinence aids. She just might. Anyway, for the colors, I basically color picked the characters' original palette to tie the design to their roots, but I had to do a bit of adjustments to their skin tones because they were both looking a bit jaundiced. But I still wanted to keep it so that Bluey is more tan than Bingo, because I imagine she's out in the sun a lot more playing with her friends. And that's pretty much it for the design. So why do I like Bluey so much? Well, you guys know I love watching shows intended for kids but are actually solid shows on their own regardless of the target demographic. I usually just talk about the bad ones, but there are plenty of good ones out there too. Honestly, I find it silly when people refuse to watch children's animation because, oh, I'm a big smart grown-up and that's for dumb babies. And exclusively only watch, quote, adult animation because good adult animation is way rarer than good children's animation. And no, it's not because the bar is lower for children's animation. It's more because people making children's animation actually like animation and don't feel like they need to hate on it to be trendy or cool. I think it's because adult animation writers feel like they have something to prove, like they really want to separate themselves from the stereotype of animation being kids media. So they often rely on graphic violence, crass language, and sexual themes excessively as a crutch because haha, cartoon characters swearing and violence funny. Cartoons don't usually do that, but we do because our show is for adults. And forget that they need to also write a good story. Or when they do, it just gets cancelled out of nowhere. Inside job. I'll never forget you, baby. And I'll never forgive what they did to you. Plus, a lot of children's animation is just so pretty. It's eye candy to look at with all the pretty colors and cute shapes and fun music. That's why I like Bee and Puppy Cat, which are right up my alley, and Bluey has all of those things and more. And I know I'm not the only adult who does this or feels this way. Yes, I do enjoy media intended for kids, but that doesn't mean all kids' media can be enjoyed by anyone either. Sometimes there are shows that talk down to the audience and over-explain everything. Sometimes the show is way too loud and overstimulating because it's meant to get kids' attentions and ultimately models the same behavior to them. Or they talk in that signature kids show cadence that can be frustrating for adults to watch. And yeah, you can argue that that shouldn't matter because kids are the ones watching the show. Except that's not entirely true either. Because most of the time, responsible parents or guardians will watch these shows with their kids because they want to monitor what their kids are consuming or simply because they want to spend quality time with them. Or heck, both. And Bluey understands this. I think the important thing to note here is that Bluey is a good show first and for kids second, because the show trusts their audience to figure out what's happening without having to spell it out, and it isn't afraid to touch on heavier topics that kids will inevitably experience in their lives but are, for some reason, very sheltered against. Things like death and miscarriages, relationships not working out. It's a fun show for the kids with good lessons, yes, but it also leaves hints and implications to those kinds of topics that only the adults would pick up on. But what really makes Bluey outstanding is that it is very well written and actually more educational to the adults watching than it is for the kids. Or I guess that's kind of an overstatement. It's equally educational for the adults and the kids. Because it also teaches parents how to play with their kids, how to diffuse situations, but most importantly, how to communicate with their kids. My goodness, the communication between characters in this show is such a breath of fresh air. characters actually communicating clearly and being honest about their feelings to resolve an issue in a healthy and productive way, instead of resorting to unnecessary melodrama from easily resolved miscommunication? What a concept! People should try that more often. Also, I really appreciate that the dialogue sounds so natural, like it's a conversation you'd hear out and about in Australia normally. Like, I can totally imagine actual kids speaking and acting the way Bluey and Bingo do, and I can see parents interacting the way Chili and Bandit interact with their family and neighbors. Plus, the characters actually speak and act like Australians, not the crikey or oh no, clear that Americans think Australians sound like. Because if you really want to sound authentically Australian, the phrases you want to go for are good on ya and you reckon? Or how good is that? Which you definitely hear a lot in Bluey. Let me know if you know other phrases that you think gets used a lot in Australian lingo. And it's really those phrases that make me think, yeah, this is very Australian, which makes sense because it is produced by an Australian animation studio in collaboration with the Queensland government. But the best thing about it is that you never really feel like you're being lectured by the show. It just shows the characters interacting organically, and it's fun for adults because it actually reminds them of when they were young instead of thinking about how old they are because they can't enjoy kids' media like they used to. Or heck, they might relate to the parents as they are now because maybe that's how they interact with people around them. And angsty teenagers like it because it's a genuinely safe space and maybe it's their first glimpse of a functional family. I think if I had one word to describe the show, I would choose accurate. Kid characters in Bluey actually feel like real kids, and it goes the extra mile to show the emotional range that kids are capable of. Yes, kids are goofy, silly, and wacky. They scream and like to run around and make messes, but they're also very sweet, clever, and perceptive. They aren't oblivious to what's happening around them, and they're actually able to fix their own mistakes with some help from their parents. I think it also really helps that the kid characters are voiced by real kids, and it's not just some adult whose voice they pitch shifted to make them sound like a kid. And honestly, they do an amazing job, like even better than adults would have been able to, I think. And the adults in the show are also great. Sometimes kids shows tend to trip into the pitfall of making the parents or adult characters frustratingly stupid, irresponsible, or oblivious, or even just flat out caricatures or absent altogether. But it's actually such a nice change to see competent adults who act like adults and have a healthy, loving relationship with the child protagonists. I'm not sure why, but it's so rare to see parents playing and being so engaged with their kids in media. Even in shows with a similar premise like Rugrats, the parents mostly leave them on their own so that the show can focus on their adventures. But what really makes the adult characters so good is that though they are undoubtedly amazing parents, I wouldn't say they're too flawless or idealized. Bandit and Chili have their own flaws and they still make mistakes too. They get too rough with their kids, they hate having to do chores, they don't always set the best example, and they do normal adult things like partying too hard and getting hungover. They also deal with their own issues and they don't always get along, but they make it work somehow, and they're really there to support each other. It very much feels like a team effort. The characters have surprising amounts of depth, and it truly makes them believable and more human than actual animated human characters, despite being anthropomorphic dogs. But despite being anthropomorphic, I love that they still show dog-like behavior sometimes. The creators have even said in a Q&A video that the characters' personalities are influenced by what breed they are. But my favorite example of this is whenever the characters get really excited or are hugging, they wag their tails like regular dogs would. So their tails aren't just there for decoration, it actually helps with the storytelling. Of course, there's also Socks, who straight up acts like an actual puppy as a 1-year-old baby, all the way down to the running on all fours, panting, barking, howling, and biting people. The setting is also very accurate, to the point I'm able to immediately recognize the locations they were in, while still having a fun, whimsical spin to it. The best example of this is the episode Ice Cream, where Bluey, Bingo, and their dad Bandit meet up for a playdate with their cousin Muffin and Uncle Stripe. And if you've been to Brisbane, you know that this episode was entirely set in South Bank. And I can honestly say I've seen that same ice cream cart, I'm pretty sure. This show is so good at capturing landmarks that you can easily recognize them if you know it. One other example that I want to bring up is in the episode Charades, when Bluey, Bingo, Muffin, and Socks go visit their grandma. I was able to tell straight away that their Nana lived in the Gold Coast just from this shot of her balcony. And this exposition shot at the end of the episode basically confirmed it for me. And wouldn't you know it, when I checked the Bluey wiki, I was right. And I'll do you one better. I wager she lives in Burleigh Head specifically because of this tree here and this little grassy beachside area, which really reminds me of Justin Park. And the high-rises in the background, I would guess, are either meant to be Broad Beach or Surfer's Paradise. My guess is Broad Beach because Surfer's Paradise is further north and kind of loops around the bay a bit more. And you're probably thinking, Callie, how do you know all this? Because I lived in the Gold Coast for 4 years and Burleigh Heads was my favorite spot to visit. It was like a 45 to an hour drive from where I lived, but the trip was always worth it. I actually have a picture in a similar spot as this shot. And now that I really think about it, the Gold Coast was kind of full of old people. Not gonna lie. But I think that really speaks a lot on the skill of the artist team for knowing exactly what to include in their backgrounds for people to pick up exactly what they're laying down. That accuracy I was talking about. And honestly, it's such a great comfort watch. If you need something to put on in the background after a stressful day or need a pick-me-up show, I highly recommend you check it out. But I think that's enough of me raving about Bluey for now. Let me know what you think of my humanized designs of Bluey and Bingo. Have you watched Bluey yet? Have you ever been to Queensland? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for hanging out with me in the pond for a while. I hope your skin didn't get too pruny. Big shout out to my lovely pond dwellers for always supporting me on Patreon. If you want to become a pond dweller and get early access to my content, then join my Patreon. If you want to see more from me, then please follow me on all my social media. If you want to submit fan art, tag me on Twitter. If you want to chat with me, join my Discord server. And if you want to see more of my videos, check out my comic and my Wildward series here on YouTube because that will make me really happy. All the links are in my description and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye!